4.4. Use the brush tool. Hello again and welcome. In this video tutorial, we'll be discussing about brush tool and its properties. Well, the brush tool is incredibly versatile, and in this lecture, we'll go through some of the important customization options. The very first step is you make sure you have a new layer created. Go over the bottom of the layers panel and click on this icon right here. Now the new layer is created. Also keep in mind that you can only paint on raster layers. And the new layer is a raster layer by default. This means if you try and go brushing over a text layer, a smart object, or a shape layer, you'll get the forbidden sign, the warning message. Now talking about the brush tool, its hotkey is B, and it works in conjunction with your foreground and background colors. That means if I paint now, I'll do that with black because it's currently on top. If I swipe their position with a key X, I'm now painting with white. If my background is white, then I can't see my brush painting here as my brush color is also white now. Great. The brush tool has two main panels that you can access by clicking on this drop-down icon in the options bar. And there you'll find many different options of brushes. Alternatively, you can also go to the window menu and then click on brush. Now you have all the new panel appear on your right, where you could see the same different options of brush tool that we accessed from the options bar before. Again, after the brush tab on this new panel, you could also see brush presets tab where you have the further brush presets. Now first, let's break down this brush panel, which is incredibly vast. Under this right corner box, you have all your current brushes. If you click on any of them, you'll immediately switch to it. Your cursor will change and it will also show you a preview in the top left of your canvas for some specific brushes. Let's try to mimic the real brushes that are in practice on the real world canvas. Some of them have tremendous customization options such as hardness, distortion, granularity, spatter size, spatter amount, but luckily we have a lot of pre-made ones. Most likely, you'll find what you're looking for by browsing around in these areas. For demonstration purposes, I'll stick with the first one because these are what you will likely use. The most important control are the following. The size is adjustable through this slider. But most users prefer to use these square bracket keys from your keyboard. Now I'm tapping the left one and you can see how it decreases my size, while the right one does the opposite. This is much faster as it keeps your focus on the canvas. The hardness refers to the way brush is applied on your layer. 100% hardness will give you straight edges like this. And this 0% will give you a softer effect which ensures the better transition and more control of your outcome. Next, spacing is useful when you want to create dotted lines. For example, like this. As you can see, these are pretty easy to use and there are infinite ways to paint with them. On this left side, you have even more customization options. Everything from shape dynamics all the way up to noise, build-up, smoothing, and so on. Those who are into digital painting are sure to spend a lot of time going through these settings. If you want a better representation of what each brush is going to look on the canvas, you can move to the Brush Presets tab, which is right next to the Brush tab. As you can see, this is much easier to understand. And yes, you can always load new brushes from the internet. But you can also click on this small icon on your top right side inside Brush Presets tab. And you get other options. Again, quite intimidating, but relax, you don't need to know any of these by heart. We can also save, reset, or load a new set. Tons of features. What's more interesting is what we have here. The number represents the size of the brush and pixels. In general, if you have a 150 pixel brush, for example, you shouldn't enlarge it more than 20 or 30% because it loses quality and becomes fuzziness. Let me show you this right here. Let's grab one of the brush from the bottom list, something like this leaf brush, for example. Now we could see its number as 95. Let's paint it now. Awesome. But again, let's increase its size for something like 500 pixels. As you can see, now it starts to look fuzzy and blurry as I start painting. This is how it is. That's what I was talking about. Now let's talk about opacity versus flow. These two are available in the top options bar. And it's gonna be easier to show you the difference rather than explain it. Let's choose an ordinary brush while I demonstrate about the differences. I have both of them set as 100% and I'm going to paint. Keep in mind, you can hold down the shift key if you want a straight line. So we have a pure black 100% opaque. Now I will bring the opacity down to 10%. As you can see, it's transparent, and if I go back and forth, the effect is not going to build up even though I double paint it. I have to let go of my mouse and click again just to paint over it. As you can see, the effects now picks up consistency. Let me go back to 100% opacity and 10% flow. Now here you can see I can go forward and backward without releasing the mouse click, and the effect builds up, or say it adds up. Let me do that again just so you are clear. So without releasing my mouse, I can slowly add to it. This helps a lot when you are trying to create details like highlights or shadows. It's essential you slowly build up the effect Otherwise, it looks unnatural. Now, for an extra layer of information, if I keep the opacity at 50% and the flow at 10%, look what happens. As I click to go back and forth, I'll arrive at 50% opacity, and that's going to be it. No matter how much I continue overlapping, I won't be able to exceed that opacity level. Of course, I can always go and continue painting, but this is a safety measure that keeps you from brushing too much. There's another point in this options bar, the blend mode. Don't confuse this with the layers blending mode. This refers to the way your paint is applied to the canvas. If I experiment with various settings, you can see how the behavior of the brush changes without fiddling with its setting. This is how you can obtain unique looks. There are limitless combinations of these settings, and that's why so many people love using the brush tools. For us, in this course, we won't paint any landscapes or try to be the next Picasso, but we will use the brush tool for various image adjustments. I advise you to jump into any blank project and play around to get used to all of these settings. Be curious and explore these options and see if something catches your eyes. Have fun, and as always, stay creative.